at home. How are you doing? I believe you are observing the laid down rules for us to curtail the spread of this COVID-19 pandemic. And moreover, since we have started our e-learning, I believe you are taking it seriously and you are doing your assignment and submit same to school. All right, God bless you. Today in our lesson, we are looking at, the subject we are looking at is agricultural science. Remember, last in our lesson, we looked at diseases of farm animals. We've looked at the definitions of diseases, the causative agents or organisms, and how these organisms get into the human body or into the animal's body, please. Then, diseases, examples of diseases as caused by these microorganisms in the body. We look at a lot, many examples of these diseases. So today we are continuing the same lesson, disease of farm animals. Then what we are looking at is symptoms of diseases. So we are still considering diseases of farm animals, but we are going to measure on symptoms of diseases. How we can control, then what will happen if someone eats any infected animal. All right. What are the examples of farm animal diseases? Let me start from there. What are the examples of farm animal diseases? Yes, we have the pneumonia. I told us that it's not human being alone that suffer from that sickness. It also affects animals. We talk about the Newcastle disease. We talk about foot and mouth disease, rinderpest, anthrax, tuberculosis, and the rest of them. All right, this morning we want to quickly look at the symptoms for each of these diseases. Pneumonia, as I mentioned earlier, the animal will have high temperature, the animals will lose appetite, loss of weight too, and the animals will feel weak. All these are symptoms of pneumonia. Then when we talk about the foot and mouth, just as the name implies, the foot and mouth affects the mouth, that is the wound. There will be wound in the mouth, the tongue of the animal, and on the foot of the animal. Apart from that, the animal will have fever also. There will be fever. Then the animal also looks sticky. Then when we talk about the Newcastle disease, remember, that is the disease we said that affects only the poultry, that's the bird. Newcastle disease does not affect goats, cattle, or sheep. It's only poultry. And one of the signs or the symptoms are twisting neck. The animal, your bird, when you see your fowl with a twisted neck, and you start stooling a greenish color of a stool, and will be coughing, know that that is what Newcastle disease. All right, we also look at the rinderpest. Rinderpest, we said there will be what? There will be a blood oozing out from any opening of on the animal's body. Example, the mouth, the ear, the nose, blood will be coming out from there. Then it can also make the animals to become lame. The animals will not be able to walk or stand up. If you see the animal stand, a little will fall to the floor, lying down most of the time. All right, with this, let's just look at what we have talked about so far. The pneumonia, symptoms of pneumonia. All right, friends, here are some of the diseases and their symptoms. Here we have the pneumonia. We have stated that it has high temperature, loss of appetite, cough, and difficulty in breathing. Any animals that have this sickness, these are the symptoms that will manifest. Then the next one is the anthrax. The anthrax, sudden death. Maybe you have a poultry farm, waking up in the morning as you just step into the farm, you see some dead animals on the floor, is an indication that they have been infected with a disease called anthrax. Apart from the sudden death, we have blood oozing out from all natural openings. Example, the ears and the nose. When you see this, know that is an indication of anthrax. We have the rinderpest diseases or rinderpest disease with high fever, grinding of teeth, blood-stained stooling, etc. Now we have said earlier that this disease affects goats, cattle, and sheep. So if you see your goat grinding teeth with high fever, maybe a blood-stained stooling, know that is the disease, the animal has been affected or infected with rinderpest. Then we have the tuberculosis, persistent dry cough, just as maybe in the case of human being, loss of weight, productions of blood, stained sputum. That is the mucus that the animals will come out with blood. Now we have the Newcastle disease. You have the twisting of neck as a symptom, which is always very, very common. Sneezing, gasping, cough, greenish color diarrhea. The animal, the bird or the fowl, will be stooling frequently, and the color of the stool will be greenish. Then we have the foot and mouth disease, sores on the mouth, tongue, and foot. Lameness, the animal will experience lameness, will not be able to stand. Every time you see the animal wanting to do what? Rest on the floor. Then we have dribbling. Animals cannot, lameness with dribbling. Fever also will occur. Then loss of weight. And lastly, the last disease we are considering is trypanosomiasis. We have said is a disease caused by protozoa. It is commonly called sleeping sickness. The symptoms are high temperature, and the animal, just as the name implies, always wanting to sleep, always sleeping, and the animal will feel sicky. All right, these are the few diseases of the farm animals and their symptoms. Then what we want to look at again are the general methods of preventions and control. How do we control these diseases in our farm animals? Number one is vaccination. The animals also are given vaccine. They are vaccinated against some diseases. Examples of such diseases that animals can be vaccinated against are rinderpest and Newcastle disease. Before you get your animals, before you bring them in, as you just bring them, they are to be vaccinated. And from time to time, they are also to be vaccinated. And these services are carried out by veterinary doctors. You may not really know how to do it. You have to hire a veterinary doctor to do it for you. Then apart from that, the vaccinations, we talk about the cleanliness of the place. Our animal house must be kept clean at all times. Then apart from that, cleaning their drinking and eating troughs. What the containers you use in feeding them, giving them water to drink, must be kept clean daily. Make it a point of duty to clean. As you change the water, you clean the drinking and eating or feeding troughs. Then another one is the beddings and the animals dropping or wasted food. They are not to be allowed to remain there for a long time. If not, they will bring in some microorganisms that may infect these animals with diseases. That is the reason, from time to time, regularly, we have to do it, clean up the place. Then, even the animal house too. Like, for example, I have my bed. I have just finished selling them. As I sold them out, before I bring the new one, I should disinfect the house, the animal house, before bringing another animal, set of animals or bed, as the case may be. Then another way we can prevent and control these diseases is good management. That we look at it in terms of feeding. You must give them adequate food. You don't have to starve the animals. If you feed them well, they will be healthy. Another one is to isolate any sick animal. Immediately you notice that this animal is looking sicky, you may not know what is wrong with that animal. Remove it from others. Isolate it. So even animals can also go for isolation. Can you see? So these are the few ways we can prevent diseases of farm animals. All right, let's just write what we have just talked about. Here are the methods of preventions and control of farm animal diseases. Number one, we have said fascination. Examples of disease that can be fascinated are rinderpest disease and Newcastle disease. Alright, the next one is proper sanitation. Proper sanitation. Then the next one, this involves daily cleaning of feeding and drinking troughs, regular removal of droppings, that is the stooling, and waste food. The proper sanitation involves daily cleaning of feeding and drinking troughs, regular removal of droppings, and waste food. See, we talk about disinfecting the animal house regularly. From time to time, the animal house is to be disinfected. Now, number 3, method of control, good management of livestock. Through good feeding, adequate ventilation, the animal house must be well ventilated. Isolations of disease carriers, any animals you have noticed, any sign of the disease, please, such animals should be removed from others so as to stop the spread of the disease. Now, IV, we have consultation of a veterinary doctor when necessary. Then lastly, we have timely administrations of drugs. When there is a disease outbreak, don't wait until your own animals are infected by the disease before you start administering drugs. Maybe you know that this disease is affecting animals around. Please administer some drugs to your own. That may be in form of vaccination as well, so as to prevent your own animals from being infected. Alright, these are the few ways we can control and prevent diseases of farm animals. Lastly, before we go, we want to look at dangers of eating an infected animals. Any danger? If I should ask you, what do you think? If you should eat an animal that has been infected with any of these diseases, what do you think will happen to you? Any answer? Anything can happen? Yes. Number one is anybody that eats an infected animal will be infected by that disease. Number two, there may be stooling. The person may have what is called cholera and diarrhea or dysentery, can have a stomach upset. Then lastly, can lead to death if one eats an infected animal. An animal that has been infected with a disease can lead to death. Alright, after all said and done, with that we have come to the end of the lesson, but before we go,